Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of Legal 123's ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
Thanks, Brad. As a business and healthcare law firm, we represent clients in multiple sectors and multiple specialties, especially healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
This season, we are searching for common ground for our diverse audience, and we are bringing in lots of guests to help us. This season's theme is the universal language, business.
Michael, I feel like there's something, you have a smile on your face and something's going on. I can't figure out what's going on with you right now. You look very suspicious.
I'm not thinking of a way to make fun of you.
Okay.
No, seriously, I know you're going to be excited about today's guest because I see a direct connection to several of your favorite things, not the least of which is Star Wars.
Okay, because this is about me so far, I'm very interested.
Of course. I know how to meet you where you are, Brad. Our guest today was previously an executive at the Walt Disney Company.
Oh my God, I bet you he knows me. You know, I've been owning stock in Disney since I was 10.
I'm sure I remember him mentioning that at some point.
Yeah.
The Walt Disney Company, as everyone knows, is a huge conglomerate, and according to Siri, has 4 main segments to their business. They are studio entertainment, parks and resorts. Third is media networks, and fourth is consumer products and interactive media.
All right, so that's a lot to unpack. So what do these different segments do?
Again, according to the internet, because I'm just waiting for our guest to correct us later.
Yes,
but
sure.
Studio Entertainment owns and manages all the Walt Disney Studios, including Lucasfilm, Marvel, Pixar, Disney Nature, Disney Music Group, and Walt Disney Animation.
Yeah, I just heard you say Marvel and Lucasfilms. So that I think that's my favorite so far.
I don't know, Brad, because I know that you're a little boy at heart. You're still that 10-year-old that bought your stock.
Yes.
And Disney Parks and Resorts is responsible for the management of all the parks and resorts owned by Disney. And I know you are a huge fanboy of going to Disney World.
I am. I think if you asked me to be the exact number of times I've been to Disney World, I don't think I could give the exact number. Somewhere between 8 and 10. Although I've never been to Disneyland. I think you and I had this conversation a while back when you had never been to Disney World and you went as an adult. And I just said, look, release your inner child, because if you don't and you fight that, you're going to hate it, and you're going to be realizing how much money you're spending while hating the time that you're there.
I just can't imagine you releasing your inner child.
I know, it was difficult.
Yeah.
I finally came out.
You really had to stretch some new muscles.
Yes.
Uh-huh. So Disney Media Networks has control over all the television networks, the cable channels, distribution and production companies, and the television stations.
And what about the consumer products and interactive media?
This segment supposedly controls Disney Digital Network, the Disney Store, and Disney Publishing worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, it is overwhelming to think about how massive this company is, Michael.
Yeah, again, according to this deep research I was doing, the company had an operating income of over $55 billion.
Billion? Okay.
And net income of almost $9 billion in 2017. But can you guess which segment was the most profitable?
The studio?
Believe it or not, Brad, Media Networks is the most profitable segment of the Walt Disney Company.
I really think our guest is going to correct you in so many different levels, Michael.
I'm starting to sweat a little bit, actually. Well, before we bring him on,
okay,
we had a little insight already that you're basically a little boy still.
Sure.
But I think we need to dive a little deeper because I really want the spotlight to be on you a little longer.
I love it.
And I know
Keep
you
going.
love it.
Yes.
Say more. I know. So I have 3 questions to highlight just how much you love Disney.
Ready.
First, what was your favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire Strikes Back. And the original one, because not the one that got remade. The original. Everybody knows that.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. What was your favorite Marvel movie?
Ooh. It's a tougher one. because there's so many good ones. But if I'm going to break it down to one, it'd be Captain America: Winter Soldier, because that one is a superhero movie that's more like a spy movie. And that elevator scene, audience, if you haven't seen it, just go find the elevator scene from that movie. It's 4 minutes of one of the best scenes in all the movies.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. What's your favorite ride at Disney World?
Okay. 8-year-old Brad, or whatever I was when I went the first time, obviously Space Mountain. Went back with the family recently. The Avatar Flight of Passage is amazing. And the only reason why I haven't brought up Star Wars yet is the last time I was there, it was still under construction, so I don't have any comparison yet. But I think we should probably bring on our guests and stop focusing on me, even though this is my favorite part of the show so far.
Yes, yeah, you look like you're so uncomfortable that we're talking about you so much. Okay, let's bring him on.
All right.
And Paul, be lenient on us if we totally if Siri messed things up.
Yeah, not
Our
us.
guest today is our friend and client, Paul Gaynor. Paul, brief introduction. Paul is the president these days. He's the president and CEO of OrangeTwist. He spent 15 years at Disney, as we talked about. He oversaw the direct-to-consumer retail business, the Disney Store and Shop Disney. He was 6 years as executive vice president over global retail. If that's not enough, he actually worked for a toy company as well, and I'm sure that we're just getting to the surface, but
Barely.
clearly he's had a really fun story, and now he's doing things to OrangeTwist.
Yeah.
We can let him tell us about that. But welcome, Paul, to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. And so far, that's been my favorite part of the show as well.
Well, so glad you're here. So you have quite a story with your background, and we want to, part of the goal today is to learn from your story some of the common lessons learned. I'd love for you to kind of fill in the lines a little bit and tell us kind of your professional story.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm sure you would have predicted this, but I went to college to be a sports broadcaster. That's kind of what I thought I wanted to do when I was younger, and went to major in speech communications to be a sports broadcaster. And during that time when I was in college, I had a part-time job at a local toy store, making some money on the side as I'm going through college, and really kind of without knowing it at that time, really found a passion and a love for retail. And, at an early age, just had a real curiosity for, the operations and merchandising and marketing, from a retail perspective. And right out of college, I had a chance to get hired as a first employee of a startup. It was a concept around toys and education. It was partly owned by public broadcasting, and it was called Store of Knowledge. And
you were too young to know how risky it was to be a part of a startup.
Yeah. Well, and just lessons over and over again on that one. But the great thing about that opportunity is I was there 6 years. We opened a couple hundred stores.
Wow.
Made a ton of mistakes, and learned a lot. Had some great mentors at that stage, and it really just kind of gave me really my passion of what I wanted to do in my career through those experiences. And after that, I went to another startup when it was the e-commerce craze. I went to a company called eToys, and really kind of got a lot of experience on the e-commerce side, and ended up going to another startup after that called Baby Style. And so really most of my career at that point had both been in brick and mortar and e-commerce, but really around education, learning, the toy industry, which really led nicely into my opportunity when I first started working with the Walt Disney Company. So that's kind of what led me into my experience at Disney. And you mentioned, I mean, one of the great things about that company is lots of opportunities to do lots of different things. And I was really fortunate to be able to do a lot of things there in my 15-year career there at Disney before getting the opportunity to do something brand new again and move to a new industry when I came over to join OrangeTwist.
I have what was that like going from startup
Right.
mode
Yeah.
for your first few jobs to such an established company?
You mean Disney was not startup?
No, it was when you were born, but
Well, thank you for being a shareholder. That really helped, provide the capital for the company to
Yes.
grow.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a completely different experience, working with a large company that had that kind of incredible infrastructure. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about that, and kind of a lesson learned in that, was it really allowed you to focus in on what's important in the business, right? You weren't thinking about a lot of the other things that sometimes you think about in a startup. And that's one of the things that company does really well, is really focusing on guest experience, and really focusing from a consumer facing perspective.
Well, that I think leads perfect to my next question for you then is, here you are with these different startups that you have, then you go to this giant whale of an organization, and then you leave to go to another startup
Yeah.
in the aesthetic space. So, what are some of the commonalities you experience that you look for at these prior companies before actually joining Orange Twist?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Uh, Orange Twist, and I'll just give you kind of the brief story on it. But I actually came in as a client, and I was a year away from turning 50, and I thought, wow, would love to learn some more about these aesthetic treatments, and ended up seeing some of the Orange Twist marketing. Went into one of our locations here in Orange County, California, and had this incredible experience. And in fact, at that time, I thought, wow, there's a lot of um, things that are very consistent with how Disney thinks about guest service, and the things that I saw at Orange Twist, from just the elevated in-store environment. Had some interaction with some incredible employees, and even thought at that point, wow, this is something different.
Mm.
And 2 days later, I got a recruiter call that said, "Hey, I know this is not an industry that you've been in. I know this is a little different, but let me tell you about this opportunity they're looking for at Orange Twist." And then met someone that we both know well, Clint Carnell, who's a co-founder and chairman of Orange Twist, and got to spend quite a bit of time with him through the interview process to really kind of get some insight into the industry. And I just, saw the incredible opportunity. As you know, it's very fragmented, and saw this incredible opportunity to really elevate and create, a high quality brand and a high quality experience. And Orange Twist already was a high quality brand. So the opportunity, to really build something new and create something new, was extremely interesting.
and I want to take a step back as
Yeah.
I'm listening, and I'm thinking the audience is hearing, toy stores, Disney. Tell the audience what Orange Twist does, and
It's not
first,
it's not a toy store.
it well, I don't know.
Well, yeah. So Orange Twist is your treatment shop for body, face, and skin. So we do non-invasive aesthetic treatments, most of them in an hour or less in our center. Things like toxins, fillers, body shaping, facials, lasers. Variety of treatments that really support you into looking and feeling your very best. And so, when you think about that, and you think about being your treatment shop for body, face, and skin, I really believe we're creating a new category. Because I wouldn't consider us a med spa, and certainly, customers around the world are seeing elevated experiences in how they think about and manage self care. And so that's what we do at Orange Twist, and always happy to help you out.
Yeah. Well, and for our audience, if you want to learn more about Clint, who you mentioned, we actually did a podcast with them. We'll drop that in the notes to if you want to go back and listen to the founder's perspective. But I love that the fact that we have two different voices now coming from Orange Twist.
Yeah, and I love, Brad, you'd asked a few minutes ago about kind of the commonalities of Paul's journey, and I like the question a lot because the Orange Twist job on the surface jumps off as something completely different than your past experiences. But I know from talking to you, Paul, in the past, that there actually is a lot of commonality in kind of how you view things, with your retail lens on.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's some things that are consistent, or kind of pillars in building a successful business that are the same. I think in lots of different categories. The other one that we haven't touched on is really just the importance of our team and talent, and that's something we talk a lot about at OrangeTwist. In fact, I've never been in a business in my career that has really seen team and talent be, more important than it is at OrangeTwist. And, I'm constantly, first of all, I'm really fortunate to work with an incredible group of people and constantly inspired really by each of the teams across each of our centers. We have providers, estheticians, our center directors that oversee the locations, working in partnership with our incredible physicians and clinical team. There's just there's a lot to it behind the scenes in making these really incredible experiences for our clients, and team and talent and culture and leading those things. I think are important in every business, but especially in something that is so personal in what we do at OrangeTwist, even makes it that much more important.
That's awesome. Well, let's shift a little bit. You've mentioned once or twice already that you have learned a few lessons along the way, that's part of all of our journey. I'd love for you to share a few lessons that you've learned along the way in your professional career that could be applicable to any business.
Yeah, well, I think I kind of touched on a little bit. I think the first one that I would share is just in any business that I've been in, making sure that we really know what the reality is of the business and what the client journey, the customer experience is, that's happening, especially when you run a multi-unit organization. You really want to be in touch with reality of what's going on in each center, because things, cultures are different. Our consumer base might be different in each center. And so just really understanding what that client facing journey is. I've learned lessons, good and bad, in the past, and been part of teams that might have been a little bit out of touch, in past companies with what the reality was, and sometimes then strategy and decision making that's being made, from the home office team might not align with what the reality is of what the client journey and what the employee experience is. And so I think that's one big lesson. That's definitely a lesson I learned from Disney that was really important, was making great guest facing decisions. So I think that's one. I'm sorry.
And how did you dive into that? I mean, for our audience, that sounds awesome. What were some of the tricks you learned then to determine what do we believe the client experience is and what is the reality? Do y'all do like secret shopping? Like what was the tools you all used?
Yeah, secret shopping is a good one to some extent, but I think, spending time in centers, in stores, and spending time listening to the teams that are in each center of what they see the experience being. I mean, and my team knows this, and our leadership team spends a lot of time in centers. You learn something new every time you go in center. And whether it's about the client experience, whether it's about how we're communicating our marketing, or merchandising our product, or whatever the things are that you might learn and listen from the team, that's something that I think really applies in any business. And then the other thing that comes to mind is, really the way you build a culture and the way you lead. And I've worked for some great leaders in the past and been part of great cultures, and I see that at OrangeTwist. And I think one of the key elements that are probably consistent through all of those experiences is really leading with a spirit of optimism. And sometimes that word, some might take it the wrong way. And optimism isn't about ignoring the issues and just wanting to look at all the good things in the business. But I've learned that it really is about being solution oriented. And we're always going to have roadblocks and barriers. And boy, the last 2.5 years have been case in point of teams needing to show this grit to manage through, problems that were out of their control. And, so when I see teams that are leading with that optimism, being solution oriented, meeting problems head on and quickly resolving them, I think that's something that I've seen it modeled, and we've really tried to lead that way at OrangeTwist. And I think it makes a real difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously, besides being the optimist of the organization, let's talk about maybe your proudest business strategy or accomplishment that you see that would be beneficial to any of our diverse audience?
Well, I think I'll share two. I'll share one that that I experienced at Disney, and then one that we've experienced here at OrangeTwist. And I think at Disney, and this would be a great example of just maybe being courageous in some of the decision making and the strategies when you see a consumer moving in a direction. And I remember, gosh, this was probably 15, 18 years ago. I had just come into a role overseeing at the time at Disney, which was the catalog division. And I think you guys might remember those, those things that we, used to get mail. You see it in your mail, right? And the company was mailing.
There's a person on the other side of this wall that probably would not know what a catalog is.
Right. Okay. Right on. Exactly.
It's a website, really, but
right.
It's a paper website.
Right.
A paper website. So, way to go, Brad.
Very descriptive. We were mailing tens of millions of catalogs a year, really not making money from that business unit perspective. And it was really time, to really pivot and shift that division. And we made the decision to not only just scale back the catalog and try to transition into e-commerce or other lines of business. We actually eliminated the catalog and completely reorganized the entire team, bringing in expertise around e-commerce and digital marketing, and really building out the e-commerce business, and not being being pretty fearless and not worrying about the revenue that we were going to lose by eliminating, again, tens of millions of catalogs we were mailing a year, driving pretty good revenue, and shifting that and doing something completely different. And while there were bumps in the road through the whole thing, the keeping the North Star of where we were going was really important. And I think looking back at that, and obviously, all of the benefit of that, it was a great lesson learned in where the consumer was going. And then fast forwarding, to the last couple of years, I think that, and I'm sure there's people that are listening, everybody's got a story, about how resiliency and grit got teams through, COVID and 2020. Let's hope that's the most challenging year we all ever have to go through in a lot of areas of life, but especially, or, specifically in the business side. And really proud when I look back at the team that managed through, those difficult times, made very difficult decisions. But at OrangeTwist, we didn't stay stagnant, and we didn't sit around as you both know, waiting, for the other end or the light at the tunnel. We made some significant changes in our organizational structure. We had areas of the business that were outsourced: marketing, finance, accounting, HR, the call center. We brought them all in-house. We actually built a team through that time, because we knew when we came out of this that we were going to be in growth mode, and we needed to have the right team and talent to be able to grow. And I look back at those things that we did in 2020 and 2021, and that team now is in place. And we have 15 stores right now in 5 states, and we're looking to double that footprint by the end of next year. And it's because of a lot of the decisions that were made during that time.
And what strikes me, there is that, for both of those things, there's that element of being courageous, where there's a jumping off point where you are leaving what's comfortable and taking a step that you have a vision for what it's going to lead to, but there's reason it's a risk it's a risk for a reason, is that it could go wrong. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I can't imagine going back to whatever it was, 18, 19 years ago, as you said, when you went from sending out those giant mailers, how much pushback you must have received from those who designed the book, from those who shipped the book, for those who talked about, look how much revenue. I mean, that shift, that mentality of choosing to say, we're going to send you something versus we're going to make you interested in something and you're going to come to us virtually, has been a huge, there must have been a lot of bumping of heads, as I guess I keep thinking back to that time frame. Because now, of course, if you said that conversation, like, we're going to go digital, everyone's like, well, where have you been? Right.
But well, and as you know, as an avid Disney fan, there's a lot of passionate fans that love the catalog as well. Right. Yeah. So Not only were there internal challenges because it kind of felt a little crazy,
Yeah.
but then you're also thinking about the guest facing experience and making sure that you're doing the right thing from that perspective too. So yeah, and it's been the same thing. You see that kind of time and time again. You get a little more. You can be a little more courageous if you really know where the consumer's going. I think you can feel a little more comfortable, and that's why I think that's so important.
So, and I think you said something earlier in this is the ability to see, you said follow your North Star, but also, everything that's happening. You have a feel for what's going on with your customer base and then being able to shift towards what they need. So that's, that I'm taking different pieces of what you've said throughout this, the show, but it's an amazing story.
Well, believe it or not, we've blown through our time slot for today. I can't believe it. I feel like we just got started.
I know. I want to go deeper into Disney. Is that a problem?
You want to talk about Disney, or you want to talk about Brad?
I want to talk about Brad's experience at Disney.
Oh,
hey, Brad, we can set up a touch base anytime you want. Okay. I got no problem having a chat.
I did have one follow-up question. When you were in college and you want to be a sports, was there a particular sport you were going to call?
Yeah, on my mind, it was going to be baseball or basketball. That's what I played in high school. I love sports. And so I thought, man, how cool what a cool job that would be. I hadn't really thought it all through, by the way.
Yeah.
But what a cool job that would be to be traveling and be part of a team, and do that. So that's at least what was in my, my 21-year-old brain.
There you go. Fair enough.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do is we'll say bye here. We're so grateful you came on. We'll go into a commercial, and then on the other side, Brad and I will do a little wrap up with any legal insights. Appreciate you.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Well, welcome back to the Legal 123's ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd. We're still here. We've been, throughout this entire season, Michael, we have been searching for one thing, that common ground of the universal language of business. And wow, what a way to kind of end the season by bringing on Paul. And Paul Gaynor brought in so many insights of a career in multiple different startups, a big powerhouse like Disney, and obviously now in the aesthetic space with another startup, OrangeTwist. And what we learned today is that, I think we've heard this others, taking risk and being bold is an important element to the entrepreneur side. I mean, that's, but you also need to make certain shifts, no matter what happens, and being able to predict that based on your customer experience. But a couple of takeaways I hope our audience heard him say, and I just want to point out from a legal perspective. I know we may also get into the e-commerce piece in a second, but one of the things he said is, like, we don't really consider ourselves a med spa, right? We really consider ourselves a place where customers come for skincare, and we're more of a skincare company. And and I've heard this from other people. Well, I'm not a med spa, I'm just an IV bar, or I'm not a med spa or an IV bar, I'm just a wellness center. And so the terminology is important for the branding of who you are and how you want to present yourself to the public. But just remember, just because you say it so, I'm not a med spa, or I'm not an IV bar, I'm just a wellness center, doesn't mean that you still don't have to comply with all the regulations of your state or FDA, FTC, wherever it is, because the moment that you obviously are touching a patient or a consumer, and you affect them by giving a treatment plan, or end up piercing their skin, or affecting their deep penetration of some sort, all of that means you're practicing medicine in almost every single state. So be careful that, and we just full disclosure, since OrangeTwist is a client, we know that this is not what they're doing. But if you are going into space, don't think that you can just say, I'm a skincare company, but I do IVs and I do laser, and therefore I'm not practicing medicine. So be very careful, just being careful of the compliance piece. And I think of the e-commerce piece, there's some other takeaways maybe you can give.
Yeah, well, I mean, and really, it's connecting the dots that when you do something like Paul mentioned and be bold and make a change for your business, or you're trying to meet the customer where they are and you're positioning yourself, that you do need to look beneath the surface into the risk from a legal perspective. As you mentioned, the government regulates the practice of medicine and they don't care what you call it.
Right.
Well, when you're, in a traditional business and you go from mailing catalogs to, being an online business, there are rules that come into place with doing that from a legal perspective. And, all of us have seen these end user license agreements that you have to click, or terms and conditions. And so, there's a host of legal hurdles that come into play whenever you make a shift in your business, and you want to make sure that you go in kind of eyes wide open and work through that, because you certainly don't want to take this massive risk, have success, and then get kind of a gut punch because you did something incorrectly.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, believe it or not, this is the end of season 8. I know. I mean, audience members, I know you're crying. Don't worry. Just wait. Follow us on social media, and we'll be announcing, guess what? Season 9 coming soon.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.